Hey folks, welcome back to another video. Today's video is not about a business topic for a change, but about this little device here, which is a Midi Fighter Twister. So if you're a Bitwig user and you think about buying yourself such a Midi controller, that's your video. This is going to be a longer video, around a bit more than 1.5 hours. So let me give you the agenda for that, because we're really covering some details. First of all, I'd just like to give you the highlights of the script. I called the script the Bitwig Performance Twister. So if you just want to have a look of what the script can do for you, just check the first few minutes with the highlights. Then, if you think you would like to use the script, I'll dig deep into the 6 modes of the Midi Fighter Twister and what you can do with this Midi controller in conjunction with Bitwig. Then comes the part about the documentation that is available and how to install Bitwig Performance Twister. There is an optional extension of the script that allows you to visualize what's happening and build your own Hans Zimmer-like touch screen. So I show you how that works together with TouchOSC. And last but not least, I'll also show you how to configure your own touchscreen. So without further ado, let's get started. Before we get into all the details, let's have a quick overview of the script. The script allows you to use 6 different modes, which can be accessed by press of the side buttons. First of all, we have a mixer mode. Then there's a channel strip mode. The third mode is the EQ mode. Then we have a mode that focuses on devices. The next mode is a general parameters mode, and last but not least, it's a user mode that you can freely assign yourself. Since the Midi Fighter Twister does not have any display, I have added an iPad, which you can see right here. And this is currently running TouchOSC as a surface to show what's happening on the Midi Fighter Twister. You see, these elements and the encoders represent what's happening on the Midi Fighter Twister. You can select this, you can turn the buttons, and what is shown directly here on the TouchOSC environment. This is very helpful, and we come to that in a minute. For example, in the global parameters mode, which has lots of different parameters which you can access in here, program change, I can easily see that this is changing programs or banks, for example, or the master volume right here. Last but not least, you can also use this touch surface to create your own comments and action bars. And I've created quite a few of them already, and I've given you that template as well with Bitwig Performance Twister. We'll get later into that, but already an overview of all the different things that you can do with this nice touch surface. So how do you switch between these different modes? For that, you use the buttons on the left and on the right side. The first mode is on the first button here on the left, that is the mixer mode. Then comes on the right side the first button, which is the channel strip mode. Second button on the left is the EQ mode. Then the second button on the right is the device mode. Global parameters I've put on the third button on the left, and the third button on the right is the user mode. There's also another way how to switch these modes, and for that you keep the left encoder pressed and click on one of these top encoders here. You can see that also on the touch surface that they are changing here. This comes pretty handy if you don't want to use the side buttons or there's no space in here. I just rest my palm on it and click these modes here. One note on that, I designed the script so that I wanted to have everything in the same place so that muscle memory could work. I would always know that mixer mode is on that side, or that this is the device mode, or channel strip mode is here, or EQ is on that mode. By that, it is easy for me to remember where these are. And I don't have to scroll through and remember this will be the next mode or that will be the next mode. No, every time I press on this left upper button, I know this is the mixer mode. Another design principle was for me to not have everything available on this Midi Fighter Twister. After all, it's a pretty simple device, 16 encoders, and you can click them on a few buttons. There is no display on it, and it's very hard to implement all of the available Bitwig function. Look at another controller like the Push, for example, that has much more possibility. So I try to keep it simple, 6 modes, access mode. You enter it by clicking the upper left button here on the side, and then you have encoders that allow you to mix up to 16 channels. In this case, I currently, as you can see, have 9 tracks open. I can simply add another track, Command T, entered, creates a new track. Here's yet another track, and you see more and more encoders are lit up. The other encoders, which are still black here, they don't have any track in Bitwig associated to them. You can also see that this track is lighter than all the others. That is the currently active track. And by clicking on an encoder, see like this here, I can activate the track that I clicked on. So most basic functionality is simply changing the volume. With this encoder, you see that this ring also shows the volume of the track. That goes for all of them. You can say in Bitwig as well and on the encoder. And you can also see that on the touch surface that the volume is changing for these individual tracks. The next functionality, which I can show you, is a long click. If I, let's say, first select this track, this is Omnisphere on the first track, and I click longer in it, I lift it up, then you can see that this track is soloed. I do another long click and I toggle the solo off again. That might come in very handy if you're in a performance situation. This is not just limited to soloing, but you can also mute the track or arm the track. For that, you go into the configuration of the Midi Fighter Twister. I'm just changing that here. You look into the mixer area, and here's the long click action. I can change that, for example, to mute. You see record arm is another one. If I click on mute, and then in Omnisphere, make a long click again, you've seen that here, I can mute the different track. It really depends on your current use case and your situation, what you rather would like to have, a mute or a solo. There's another thing that you can do is when you push the encoder and turn it, see that right now. In this case, you see that here on the inspector window, I'm changing this first send FX. See that here? Also very useful. Let's say you put in, here's a delay on that, and you make a quick turn and bring the delay up and turn it out again next to mixing. Very useful, I think. It's not limited to send FX, but it's also configurable. If we look in here, click and turn function, you can turn that to panning. So let's see that I can pan, right? How about if you change that to the mixer here, or go here in the mixer. Now you can see that on the first track, Omnisphere, I'm panning from left to right, and also at the same time I can control the volume. This is push and turn. There's yet another functionality, and that is to start or trigger scenes or cue markers. Let's start with the scenes. I hold this button key here on the right side, encoder number 16, which is, I think that offers as a shift key or shift encoder, and then I can click on any of these other encoders to trigger the associated scene. For example, I do this for scene 1. See that triggers scene 1. I do that for scene 2. See that? Triggers the second scene. The last one, the 15th one, is not the 15th scene, but the stop button. So I click on that, that stops. And also very handy. Let's start scene 3. Here it comes. And then I can stop it again. It's not limited to scenes, but you can also change that in the configuration here in the mixer modus for cue markers. If you click on that one, Shift button plus the first encoder triggers the first cue marker. Shift button plus the second encoder triggers the second cue marker, and so on. Okay, let's change to the next mode, which is the channel strip mode. It's available by the upper right button. Click that here. Now I have a very different mode compared to the mixer mode. This one focuses on one track at a time. The first encoder is there to change between the different tracks. You can see that with that I can easily scroll up and down through the different tracks. And the second encoder is always for the volume of the currently selected track. Also with that I can scroll through the different tracks and easily adjust the volume. The third one is always the panning. See that here? It's also, see that encoder changes here and nicely shows the panning location of the currently selected track. In Bitwig, you can see that down here in the inspector when I turn this encoder that the panning changes. The fourth encoder I have put on the master volume. Let's show that here in Bitwig as well. So easily I can remember if I go through that, if I want to change the master volume, I quickly just go on this mode here and turn this encoder, and that changes my master volume. Now, this is the first line of encoders. The second line of encoders is specifically for the send FX. Let's go, for example, to Omnisphere back again. We currently see there is 3 available send effects I have in here: delay, a chorus, a reverb. And with this row I can control up to 4 send effects channels. So when I turn this here, you can see that I'm increasing the send to the first FX channel, second FX channel, third FX channel. You might notice that this is grayed out. That means this is currently not selected. Also, you can see that the encoder is deep blue while the other one is light blue. And with a click on the encoder, you can switch this on and off. I find this really practical. Just with one click, you can easily turn them all off. And you can see also with a parallel click, I can also turn them all on. Or you can change them still and click them on. In case you have, let's create another effects channel. Here's another one. You see all of them are in blue right now. They're all of them turned off. And now I can easily turn them on and change them again. See that? And I can also change again for which track I want to do that. When they're all turned off, you see in the first one I'm turning them, switches them on. Clicking them turns them on and off. All right, so first row selecting and changing basic functionality. Second row is for the send channels. And then comes the last row, and that is for the track remotes. I found that really useful to have remotes and 8 knobs here for track of controlling one single track. If we go down, there is one, for example, this Rev2 hardware controller has 8 different remote controls, and once we get into a track like this, it shows them basically in the colors that is used in Bitwig as well. Bitwig, you can see that down here. This is the Prof Rev2 hardware controller here, and see I'm turning that as the level, that is the program. Currently looking into Bitwig to see what I am doing here, but it comes in very neatly. If, look at the touch surface, also the currently associated functionality is written rightly in the encoder there. Nice. Okay, let's have a look what happens when I click on the buttons. We already discussed that for the center effects, that is the second row of encoders. Let's look at the first row of encoders. Clicking on the first one activates or arms the track. You can see that here in Bitwig as well. Now what happens when I click on the second one, you could guess it, it goes on solo, and the third one is mute. It's exactly the order in which they appear in Bitwig as well. So record arm, solo, and mute. Clicking on the fourth encoder will toggle the fill mode. Here's another use case for the channel strip mode. Let's say you want to change the tracks to play a DAW instrument here, for example, but still want to be able to change parameters of a track. You can pin that track. For example, let's pin Omnisphere. I make a long click on the first encoder, which then turns green, and then I can change, here you see that in Bitwig, throughout the different tracks, but still the channel strip is pinned to the first, or to the pinned track, which is Omnisphere in this case. So if I turn this here, this is still Omnisphere, even though you can see my currently selected track is DAW. Also here with the panning, you can see that on the TouchOSC surface. Also arming, soloing and muting also still works on the Omnisphere track. If I want to change that back again, I click again, and now the pinned track is gone. Do it again. I'm pinning that here. You see it turns green. Now I cannot change the track anymore. You see it's pinned there. It's green. That means I cannot change in there. When I depin it, I can change again the track. Then there's a similar functionality that we saw also in the mixer, which is to start scenes. So I can go here and configure this. See here in the channel strip mode, I can change between scenes or cue markers. Let's switch that to scenes, and I hold the shift key, and this will trigger the first scene. This one stops it again. Second scene stops it again. Really depends on your use case. I can also put that back to cue markers. Might show you that later in the video. Good, let's have a look at the EQ mode. For that, I'm clicking on the second button on the left, and we're now in EQ mode. You can also see that in Bitwig, when you change the mode, there is this simple little message that shows you the current mode that you're in. I have now changed into EQ mode. The EQ mode is there to quickly allow you to add an EQI Plus device, which is a device you might find very valuable and useful in many situations, and control this with the 16 encoders of the Midi Fighter Twister. So I've did this right now, and you see my currently selected track is Spectresonics. There's a nice guitar on that. Let's start the scene. Let's hear that. All right. And let's say I want to add an EQ on that. And what I simply have to do is click any of these encoder buttons, and bam, there is an EQ device on that. You see it popping up in the device chain down here. If I remove it again, see it's gone in Bitwig, and everything is black again. The LEDs are out, and I click on any of these buttons. Here is the EQ Plus device, and you can already see that the device is available because some of these encoders light up. When I change the track here in Bitwig, you can see that if there is any EQ device on the track available, it lights up. You see that here's an EQ on the addictive drums, and if I go to DAW pad, there's no EQ, and now I go to this one. Here is an EQ fully available, and we go to Spectrasonics, Omnisphere again, and some of these lights have come up and the EQ device is available here. So how does that work? The EQ Plus device has the possibility to add many, I do that manually here right now, of these bands. You can see I'm putting up 6 bands in here, 7, 8 bands. Now I'm limiting this to only 4 bands. So let's do that again and create one. And I have the possibility in each of these column of encoders to control 1 band. If I click now on this upper band here, I activate the first band. You see that here in Bitwig, the first band activated. Here's another trick. I make a long click on the second encoder, long click, and that opens a large EQ device. If I do a long click on the first one, I can activate or deactivate the EQ device. Now with the click on this first encoder, the first column has been activated, and now I use the upper encoder to control the gain. It's probably easier to see that if I turn on the second encoder. See that? Here, this is the gain that I'm controlling with the first line of encoders. Let's turn to the second row. The second row is for the frequency. Here's a little trick. If I push down and turn, it goes faster. So you can easily scroll through a large band of frequencies, and if you do a normal one, you can make the fine adjustments. The third row is for the Q, so that I can change that here. Q, make it very stiff one and like that. And the last one here, the last one is for the type of the band. With that you can scroll through the different types. On the left side here in the inspector you can see which type that is. That is the bell type, high cut, different types of high cut, a high shelf. I'm going back to that, to this one turns it off, and let's go back to the bell one that we have here. Okay. Now I can turn on all the others by simply clicking on the first row. I can also turn them off again. If I just want to have 2 bands, this here for example, just have them on. Now I have as a sensible default put the first one with the type to low cut, and the 4th column to a high shelf. See that this is the default location. All right, and this allows you to very quickly add an EQ and control the first 4 bands of EQ+. Okay, what happens when I click on the encoders? We already saw that with the first line of encoders, that switches on each band, or switches them off, toggles them. The second line is for the frequency, and when I click on this frequency button, it resets the frequency. And you guessed it, the same is true for the third row. This is the Q factor, so when I click on that, it resets the Q. Now what is the 4th one? And for that, let's have a look at one of the first or the 4th encoders, where I have a different type of EQ band, so to say. I can change the band here. Now when I click on the first button, I turn it on or off again, regardless of what the last type was. You can see that this is now a high cut 6. Change that. If I do this with the last button, it resets it to the, what I found quite useful, default type, which is a high shelf for the fourth band, or is a low cut for the first band. So you can see I can change the type. That's interesting. And when I click on this fourth encoder, it turns back to the default here, which is a low cut. Right, let's talk about the device mode. You access this with the second button on the right. Here we go. That's the device mode. It's fairly straightforward. The device mode has two areas. The first area is the first 2 rows of encoders. The first 8 encoders control the device parameters. The second part is this area. This is the 3rd and the 4th row. These last 8 encoders control the project-wide parameters. Let's start with the device parameters. Here I have a track. I placed the polysynths on that, and you can see polysynths here has already 8 different device parameters, and when I turn these encoders, you can see that I can turn and change all of these 8 parameters. Nice. Okay. Now what happens if I click on these encoders? The first line here is reserved for the devices. So when I click on the first button, nothing changes here. In the end, it means you focus the first device in the device chain. Let me show you that when I click on the second device, which is delay 2, and now I click here on the first encoder, it changes to the first one. Now what happens if I click on the last one here, on the 4th encoder? Well, it goes to the last device in the device chain. And now in between, you guessed it, this one here, the second encoder, when I click on it, it goes to the previous encoder. You can see that, it moves one back. And if I press on the 3rd one, it goes to the next encoder. And with that, I can quickly maneuver to all of the different devices in a chain. First device, last device, previous device, next device. All right, that's the first device. And here I can change the parameters. I go to the next device, and here you can see I can do that for the delay. Next one, reverb. All right. The same is true for the project-wide controls. You see them always on all the way on the left here. I have simply put in the master volume on the first one. You can see that's turning. Then I added on the master channel a little DJ EQ, and you can see I can change that as well. And the last ones here are the frequency bands of that EQ. Not really meaningful. Do this on your own, but it's very handy for a whole project to have these project-wide remote controls available. If there's no control associated, which you can see here, these 2 encoders are left blank. If I click on them and connect them, let's do this for the volume of the Hydra. You can see that works as well. There's a few more buttons to understand. On the second line of the encoders, these 4 buttons can be used when I clicked to select parameter banks. First one, remember, this is the device, and this is for the individual parameter bank within a device. When looking on the polysynths, we can see that there's quite a few different parameter banks. And by clicking on one of these encoders, you can change between the parameter banks. See that? It changes the different bank here. This is the mix bank. If I go back, I can click on the oscillator bank. Now the same logic applies here as well. Clicking on the first goes to the first parameter bank. Clicking on the 4th encoder in the line goes to the last one. And here, this is the previous one, and that is the next one. So always first, last, previous, next one. Go to the first oscillator 1, you can see it. Click on it, oscillator 2, then there's mix, as well, oscillator 3, obviously. That's the last parameter bank, vibrato. Alright, let's have a look at the global parameters mode. Accesses with the third button on the left side. Here we go, global modes. So many of these are actually looking after when you push the encoders. So when I push the first encoder, you can start and pause. Let's have a look in Bitwig. See, I paused this there and the start position moved. I do it again. Start position continues. I only pause it. See that? It moves further on. If I click on the second button, stop is going to be made and that resets the playhead. See that? Now I press stop and it goes back. I can also directly press stop. When I use the third encoder, I can change the crossfade. You can see that when you look in the master channel here on the right, when I turn the encoder, the crossfader between A and B is moved. Let's look at the next one, that is the loop duration. You can see when I turn this fourth encoder, the loop duration gets longer or shorter. And when I push it, I can actually move. Push and turn, then I move the whole loop duration. When I click on it, the loop is turned on or turned off. You can see that up here in Bitwig. See that? Change the loop on or off. Now what happens when I click on that one here? I can toggle record. Third encoder toggles record. Let's move on. I click on this encoder, encoder number 5. I can toggle the fill in. What's a nice performance feature? That one is for toggling fill. The next one is for toggling overdub. See that this is the overdub for the clip launchers, and then when I press it long, the overdub on the timeline on the arranger is toggled. So I can toggle both on the clip launcher by short clicking or long clicking. Now the arranger overdub is changed. The next one is to change the metronome. See that here, and also the color of the metronome changes. And the next one, this encoder, encoder number 8, is for changing the tempo. You can see that the tempo here. And when I push turn, you can make that in smaller, more finer changes. This makes it really fast, and turn it slowly. When I push it, then it's much finer to control the tempo. Then the next encoder here, encoder number 9, is used to change the active track. You can also see that here. Encoder number 10 is again for the master volume. See that down here. Now here comes two interesting ones. This is for, especially for external VST, you can fire off program change message. You see the current program changes message that I'm sending here is number 18, 21. This is when I turn this encoder here. When I turn the encoder left to it, I can change the bank. You can see that the LSB is a bank, and when I push down, I can change the MSB for the bank as well. Very useful one. Next encoder here is for zooming. You can see the zoom is changing. And now the last 4 ones here, when I click them, I can toggle the inspector on and off. If I click long on it, I can toggle the device on and off. This one here is to toggle on the mixer when I do a long click. And I can also change to the arranger view, or here, sorry, the mixer view. Mixer view, click on that one, and arranger view, click on that one. And that one is for the editing view. I don't currently have a clip selected. Let's select the clip here, and then we can also see the edit view. So that one is arranger, that one is mixer, that one is note editing. When I long click on one of these encoders, it changes the view or toggles the view that you have in the lower part of Bitwig. So long click on that one toggles the mixer. Long click this encoder, toggles the note editor in the lower. Long clicking on the last encoder, number 16, toggles full screen. So let me show you what you can do with the program change. Here, for example, I have uploaded Omnisphere, and in Omnisphere I have associated one of these few thousand patches to a program change. And when I turn the knob in here, you can see that I'm changing through different Omnisphere patches, one of my favorite patches. And that happens by each time a program change message is triggered. We can see that here also. I move that to the side, program change 10, 11, and you see Omnisphere is reacting to that. Later on I will show you how I have implemented that on the TouchOSC device, but for now I'd like to show you another interesting thing is, and if you look down here at Omnisphere, you can see that you have these buttons where you can click down and up to change a patch. And here on the last encoder in the global mode, I have implemented in the following way. If I turn it to the right, I send a CC message that is associated to this button here. And when I turn it to the right, I have associated another CC message which is associated or linked or MIDI mapped to this button here. And with that, in Omnisphere, I can very easily scroll up and down by only changing this one knob here. Probably you can do that in other VSTs as well. Find that really handy to quickly scroll through Omnisphere patches. Okay, last but not least, the user mode. For that, I click the third button, the last button on the right. That enters into the very green user mode. This is a special mode. I have not attached any of these encoders to any Bitwig functionality, so that is free to use it in the form as it comes when you unbox it. So anything that I'm turning here doesn't have any impact on any Bitwig functionality, but you can still MIDI map it, and it's sending CC messages. So as an example, I'm going into one of my favorite soft synths, Omnisphere. I click on MIDI CC Learn, then I turn this encoder, and here in this unclean machine, it changes the environment. Here's the vibrato death. Here's the, I click on right here, MIDI CC Learn. Here we go. Then turn that one, and with that, you have access to all the MIDI mapping functionality that you have when you unbox the Midi Fighter Twister. You can also see that the encoder rings are turning, but there's no bidirectional feedback. So if I turn something here on Omnisphere, this is not being fed back to Midi Fighter Twister. So when I change that again, it jumps directly to the value that comes from the Midi Fighter Twister. Let's see that again. Here we go. Yeah, see that jumping. And by the way, these nice controllers, they also come in white. Lovely, right? Documentation. All right, let's have a look at the available documentation. For that, you can click either here in Bitwig, go to the configuration controller, then go to the Midi Fighter Twister, and here's a little question mark symbol. If you click on that one, you directly get onto the Bitwig Performance Twister page on GitHub. For any others, go to GitHub and search for that, and I'll also make a link down in the video. And here's quite a few documentation available on the different modes, on the OSC extension, configuration, installation, etc. I put quite some effort for that, so that you can see what you can do with the script in these individual modes. There is also an additional documentation on the OSC extension. That's this README. It's also linked from the other README file, and here you can have a closer look into the extensions to create this Hans Zimmer-like touch screen or OSC surface, and all the additional comments that I have implemented and how you can use them. Okay, let's have a look how to install Bitwig Performance Twister. For that, you go on the documentation. Again, the link is down below the video. And here in the documentation, we go into installation. That tells you how to do it. I'm going to walk you through this step by step. But basically, what you need to do is you download the latest release of Bitwig Performance Twister. Then you must update, before something can really happen, the Midi Fighter itself with the configuration. I'll show you how that goes. And then we simply copy one file into Bitwig that contains the script. And in Bitwig itself, we can configure the controller. And that's pretty much all you need to do. So let's get started. How do we get access to Bitwig Performance Twister? We click here. That leads you into the releases. Here we go. The last release here at the time of making this video is version 2.2. And here you find zip file that contains the important files you need in order to let it run on your computer. After I have downloaded the file, this is what I can see in the Finder. The first file that we need to is the Bitwig Performance Twister MFS file, and we need that to set up the Midi Fighter Twister. So let's move into the Midi Fighter utility. All right, this is the Midi Fighter Twister utility, and one trick is that you should update the firmware. When my device arrived, I hadn't done that in the beginning, and that led to a few problems. What you can do is you go into Tools, Load Factory Firmware, get one of these here, and update them. I don't do this right now. I've already did this, but make sure that you have the latest update. So the next thing is that we go into File and import the settings, and for that we look after the file that I have provided. Okay, here we go. You select the MFS file, you open it, and that comes with all the configuration for all of these encoders in all 4 banks. You don't need to know about the details. The only thing is you loaded it, and then you send it to Midi Fighter Twister by clicking on this button. I just saw that there was a little graphics animation, and that was all. We have uploaded the Bitwig Performance Twister configuration into the Midi Fighter Twister now. Let's move on. So once we did step 1, 2, and then also 3, we need to copy the Bitwig extension into one of the following locations. If you're on Windows, that's a location. I'm personally on Mac, so I'll show you how to copy that into the right location. So here you can see this is the downloaded file, and I've opened up the folder on the Bitwig Studio and the extensions. This is in my Documents folder, and so you have the Driven by Moss Bitwig extension there as well. So what I do is I simply take the Bitwig extension file and copy that over here. I can simply replace it. There it is, and now you have made or provided Bitwig the access to the script. Let's open Bitwig and go to the dashboard. Okay, I've opened Bitwig right now, and next thing is we go into the dashboard, go to configuration, here controller, and we need to add another controller. So we look at the hardware vendor, and that is DJ Tech Tools, and there you can see Midi Fighter Twister provided by me, version 2.2, and I simply click on add, and it's coming up here below. And the next thing is we need to connect the Midi Fighter Twister. I have that here to both the in and the out port, and that's it. You can already see all the configuration items, and you see also Midi Fighter Twister started up in the mixer mode. So that's all to it, to have it running in Bitwig Studio, the device itself. Let's move on to the TouchOSC surface. As much as I like the Midi Fighter Twister, it has one downside. And I would say it's not a downside of the device per se. The form factor is great, but it would be great to have some kind of way to visualize what each encoder is actually for. So a little display. But it is as it is, and for that reason I have created a solution by using OSC and a tool called TouchOSC, and with that I'm adding a display that is able to show me exactly what's happening on the Midi Fighter Twister, or in other words, what happens if I turn or click or push turn an encoder on the Midi Fighter Twister. Okay, let's have a look on what you can do with the TouchOSC surface. Here it is. Let's start with the main comments. I have uploaded a little Bitwig file, and when I press now on and track the leftmost upper button, you can see simply adds a track. You can very quickly add in tracks. You can also add audio tracks. Yeah, okay, you can do that with shortcuts as well, but I don't know all the shortcuts that I've put on here, and that helps me to quickly add, for example, another effects track. Also helps me to change between arranger and mixer and editor with a simple button click on the iPad here. I also can toggle the devices. This is the lower part of the screen. Toggle the mixer, bring the node editor in there. Once I am the clip launcher, as you can see, I can open that up, or close the timeline and open it up again. So very quickly I can change the setup. Sometimes there's a window that I can open. Let me see if I have, for example, this lovely UHI device. You can see that Diva is coming up or down if I toggle on the window. I can also zoom in and out with these buttons here. Then there's a track height. I can easily make them really small or make them larger and increase the track heights as well, or decrease them again. And there's bounce in place. Let's move on to the arranger view and put the clip launcher in. Let's take a MIDI clip, that one for example, and put bounce in place. Here we go. That bounce this in place. Or let's say one of these you want to quantize them, click on that, quantize it, or you can quantize with some of these parameters. And If you want to stay on the touchscreen, I also added an OK button down here, so I can very easily maneuver around here and go on a clip and say quantize with all of these parameters and click on OK on the iPad. And that was it. That is on the left side. Then let's look on the right side. These are favorites that I can add. For example, let's create a new, or here we already have an empty empty file, and just with a click I can add another Omnisphere device or a Trillion or a Keyscape. Here they go. Or I love the BBC Symphony Orchestra. You get it. You can also do that with Bitwig devices. They are in green here, so with one click there's a sampler device or a polymer. Then I also have a few external hardware which I can very easily add here. Or there's another presets. So I'm a big Jacob Collier fan, so with a click on that I can add the Jacob Collier Audience choir and hear myself singing in Berlin, for example. Then there's maybe you want to add another effects on that. By the way, I've loaded a lot of external large VST or club devices, so let's remove them to make it a bit quicker. Here in Omnisphere, for example, on that track I'd like to add an effects, so I click on effects and bam, here's a Bitwig reverb. Or you want to have a delay, here's the delay. I just click on that and compress the whole thing and then run it through a Filter Plus device. Here you go. That's very easy to and very quick to add new devices. Let's add another track and put a tool device on that and add an oscilloscope. And here's another nice tool that I found while developing. It's called Show MIDI, that lets me show what MIDI messages are coming in. It's a little nice clap device that is very helpful to test MIDI coming in. I don't have a keyboard here right now, but you might want to check out this tool as well. So that was it on the main comments screen. Let's look at some of the additional comments. For example, I'm not going through all of them because there's quite a few. Show help. I find this is I mean, the Bitwig help device is just phenomenal. I believe we should have that in all other DAWs or all other software. Here's if you're on one of these devices, you can click very easily to show the help screen here. If there's a few mutes that you have, there's a nice little trick to clear them all, right? So I muted some tracks, I muted them all here, and with a click on that button, they're all gone. Maybe you have to done the same for the solo. Click on the clear solo, removes that. I think you can understand what quantize audio is, normalize, reverse, all tools that work on the audio tracks. Great little thing is faders here. These are now sending fader messages. Maybe the MIDI show MIDI device is helpful here, so we move that to the beginning. Let's put in, let's say, how about a polysynth, and let's control the polysynths with these faders on the device. Yes, you could obviously use the Midi Fighter Twister device, and I would usually do that, but for completers, maybe somebody wants to have a fader on TouchOSC as well. So let's see if MIDI CC is coming in here. So we add show MIDI, and now I move the faders, and you see CC11 and CC12 is coming in. Now I found that quite difficult to directly map this to a polysynth here, for example. So I found that quite difficult to map that directly, even though you see that MIDI is coming in here. Let's try that, for example. Say Controller or Taster zuweisen, Web Controller. I'm moving this in. You can see that MIDI is coming in, but it is not picking this up here in a Bitwig device. So what you can do is, I found, you can add a MIDI modulator at the beginning. You open that up, and now you can learn the CC, and I'm moving this one. You see it's picked up CC11. I'm moving the fader, which you can see here, and now I can let that go on a filter here, for example. Here we go, and get out of here, and now you can see I can change the cutoff frequency of the filter. It's a little workaround. I'm not sure why that is. So you can use the MIDI modulator as a workhorse to change also CC messages coming from TouchOSC. By the way, it works with VST elements directly. For that, I have created an Omnisphere instance, and I put a show MIDI before that. So I'm moving the faders here. You can see that the CC messages are sent, and let's have a look in Omnisphere, which is receiving these CC messages as well. Omnisphere, I can click on MIDI CC learn, and now I'm moving the fader, and you see that works nicely. Let's put the resonance on the second fader. Here we go. So you can move them with these faders on the OSC surface. All right. Okay, so how can you build your own visualization? I'm using a software called TouchOSC for that. Let's have a look at this software. We can look into their website. It's by hexler.net, and you need to purchase your own licenses for TouchOSC. Be careful that you use the newest version. There's an older version which is called MK1 that was not so powerful. I like the newer version much better. It's much easier to configure your own control surface with TouchOSC with the new version right now, and I'd like to show you how I am doing this. The first one is showing what's happening on the Midi Fighter Twister. This is this area, and then here is more areas which go in a different direction. This is about comments that I can send from the touch screen to execute or trigger comments in Bitwig. This is something that we all probably have seen at having Hans Zimmer when he sits off this large touch screen and pushes the buttons. I wanted to have something like that as well. So I programmed a few additional comments in here, and some are already available with Moss's excellent OSC implementation. What I'd like to show you right now is how this works and how you can configure your own template in TouchOSC. It doesn't have to be TouchOSC. It could be any other OSC capable software. Probably somebody finds and presents us some others. I'm going to show it to you with what I've chosen here. That is TouchOSC. So let's get started. Again, first I show you how to visualize what's happening on the Midi Fighter Twister. So I'm double clicking into this area, and this is 16 boxes that shows information about each of the 16 encoders and what's happening on each encoder. There are all quite likely. I just copied them after we create the first box. And the most important thing I'm going to show you is the actual OSC message. We get that in a second. Just before that, you can see here's a document tree. These are all the different elements. You can see that this group here, this box is called BPT encoder. This is all the group around here. I clicked on this, and within this group, there's other 16 groups inside. Then here's group number 1. This is for the first encoder, second encoder, third encoder, and so on until we have encoder 16 down here. So they're all similar, and it's important that the name of these, which I set them, is simply 1. Why is it 1? And for that, let's have a look into this group here and take, let's say, this label here. This here is a label. We can see that the type is label. The name of it is name. We get to that in a second why it's called name. As I said, the important thing is that we need to have an OSC, or yes, a message, but especially an OSC message, because we are sending OSC messages back and forth. And these OSC messages, they have a certain format. They are created by, it's like a directory path. They start with a slash, which denotes the roots, and here comes the parent.name, which is an attribute, which is calculated and results to BPT encoder. And remember the group that I've shown you a second ago that contained the 16 subgroups, that was called BPT encoder. And then comes another slash, that is the slash here, then comes the parent name, and the parent name is this group here, and remember that was called 1. And when I copied them, I created 16 copies of them and just renamed them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until 16. And the last one is the name. This here, this element, this label is called name, and so it actually results in name. Let's look at another label. This one here, this name is actually the click function, and it shows here what happens when you click on an encoder of the Midi Fighter Twister. So so this is the message type, and it has an argument, and that is results in text. When Bitwig via the script sends a message with the label BPT encoder 1 name, then it applies within the name a string, and that string is then sent to the text, which just simply shows in the label here instrument 1. So what that does is the script, for example, in the mixer mode, simply shows the name of a track in Bitwig, and here in TouchOSC, this label then subsequently visualizes the track name. Here's a few others. This is the turn function. So what happens when I turn the encoder? Again, the argument is set to the text of this label, and here's an example. The track volume is changed. So it's important to know these different OSC messages, and for that I can show you where you can take them from. I'm going on the description, the documentation of Bitwig Performance Twister on GitHub, and here I've added a README OSC extension, and within this, let's see, there's quite a lot of documentation on the OSC extension, and here is a table that shows me the comments from Bitwig to TouchOSC. These are all these BPT encoder messages, and we already talked about the name. I think we looked at the turn function, and we just have a look at all the others here. I can quickly show you them directly in TouchOSC. Let's go back here. Here's, for example, the click function. What happens when you click on an encoder? What happens if you do a long click? Here is what happens if you shift click on an encoder. Here's an interesting thing. That is a message where we receive the color of an encoder. And for that, here's a little function that I've copied from somewhere else and made it so that when the text color has the RGB values in it, then it goes through all the elements and sets the background color to the specific color that the script sent to TouchOSC. And that way we can see that these encoders all reflect the Bitwig track colors. All right. So this is an interesting one. This is is selected. If that is selected, I take, I believe it's a 0 or 1 that is sent. You can have a look here. It's an integer value, so between 0 and 1. And when a certain track is selected, this visible attribute of this little element here is set. So that means you can see when a track in the mixer mode is selected, this appears, otherwise it's hidden. Good. That's for the messages that come from Bitwig to TouchOSC. Let's have a look how the other way looks like. Okay, so let's have a look. This is just the simple label which are placed on top of a button. This is the button and name is add track. Let's have a look at the OSC function, and this is going the other way. This is going from TouchOSC into the script and then into Bitwig, and the comment is comments add track. So when I go back into the documentation up here, you can see all the different comments that I've implemented with the script, and here is the comment comments add track. Doesn't have any argument or any value that I need to apply. It just adds a new empty instrument track. And here's a few others that you can see. Add audio, that adds an audio track. This adds an effects track. So these are basically all these add comments, and then to add a track, an effects channel, an audio channel. It's to show the arranger, show the mixer, show the editor, toggle devices, toggle mixer, and so on. This is quite straightforward. You see these are available in the API, so you can switch to the arranger. You've seen how that works. It's no big magic. There's a few that I would like to show you. Here's an interesting one. This is the OK button. The comment time is comments Bitwig action, and the argument is dialogues OK. Let's have a look in the documentation. So here says comments Bitwig action, and that says it launches an action in Bitwig. Now, Bitwig, or the API in Bitwig, has the possibility to send in action comments, and these action comments then are executed quite similar to a keyboard shortcut. And this is quite powerful, because with all these actions you can basically do everything that in Bitwig you can do with a commander. And the problem is now where do I get these actions from? And from that I have downloaded these Bitwig comments, and there are my documentation as well, and I put them here into the list of Bitwig actions, so that you can see them. They're based on version 5.1, and I use the German API. This is why the description is in German, but I think already the action ID tells you a lot. So if you go through that, you can see that there's a whole lot of action items. Let's take a look. Arranger zoom out, right? Basically explains itself what that would mean. In the arranger, you just simply zoom out. Let's see, there's a whole lot of them. Extend the selection range to item to the right. And now it is possible by simply adding a button here, naming the button, or giving the OC function comments Bitwig action, and then adding in the argument the ID of the action ID. So I think I had a dialog. Say dialog. Yeah, this was the dialog. Dialog no, okay. That was specifically the action that I provided in this example here. Wow, I think this is really nice and powerful. let's move on to the next thing I'd like to show you, and that's available on these additional comments. Let's click into here. Here we have faders, and these faders, these can send CC message. So the message is called CC, and then comes the name of the fader, which is actually not used, but if you log or have a look into the OSC message logs, then you can see what the name of the fader is. This is why I left it in here. And then comes 3 arguments, X, 1, and 11. What does that mean? For that, we take a look into the documentation I'm providing. Here we go, and here's described again the OSC message, CC, and then a name. And we first provide the X, that is the value of the message. So when you move this fader, it sends a message. Here we can go that it's an integer message from 0 to 127. The next number 1 here is, let's have a look, is the MIDI channel. So MIDI channel 1, and the third argument is again an integer, and that is the control change number. So we could put that in play here, and then there is a lock window which we can toggle, which is very useful. And when I change this here, you can see that the message which is being sent is CC fader 1, and it sends the value of the fader. It's channel 1, and CC message is 11. We go up here in this 127. Now, the script takes this information and then converts that into a CC message, which is then sent on the track that you have selected. This here is another fader. Here I have put another CC message 12. Yeah? And with that, you can build your own army of your own faders and simply change the MIDI channel and the CC number. Another similar thing is the XY element. And on this page, I have placed 2 of them. This is an XY element, and here's yet another one. We have a look on the on the OSC message. And again, this is also in the documentation. How does it work? The comment is XY. This element is called XY1. Again, so something that I can compare that in a log, and we have a look at that in a minute. And what I'm sending here is first is the value of the X position, then the value of the Y positions, both integers from 0 to 127. It goes on MIDI channel 1, and here this is for CC11 and then CC1, and I'm using that to control the articulation of my Spitfire libraries. It's really nice for strings to change the articulation, and an XY element is quite nice way to control orchestral sample libraries. That is the same. Here I control 71 and 74. Let's have a look how that looks in the log. I clear the log, and then I'm changing here, and now you can see that it stays all the same. This is the track. It's the CC element 11 and 1. With one OSC message, I'm sending 2 values, and you can see the different values right here. Let's change that one. All right, that's the XY element. Let's move on. I'd like to show you the program change messages, and for that we click into here. That is an area that I'm using for program change messages. I'm using that to control Omnisphere, soft synths that I like a lot, which has many different patches and some of Keyscape and Trillion are incorporated here as well. And for me, that works great. But you might want to simply use program change messages. So you can click that to your liking, either have this Omnisphere view or the program change message. Here I included a button that starts new software, soft sense of Omnisphere. I'll show you in a minute how that works. Here I can click up and down the patches, and I can increase program change messages with these buttons. Let's have a look how that works. First of all, here I included an interesting element. We go down here. That is this group here, and it's a grid. It's a grid element in TouchOSC, and I can supply how many elements I would like to have here. And when I click on one of these elements, it's basically an array of 8 by 8, so that means 64 buttons. I don't have to put in 64 buttons on myself. I just edit these labels. What's important for us to know is the OSC messages for this single element. How does that work? First of all, the OSC message is program change. By the way, here I have added a constant. You saw me sometimes using something like name or parent.name. Here I simply added a constant, and the comment name in OSC is called program change, and the sub comment is set. So it means I want to set a specific program change message, and the argument is 1, and 1 stands for the MIDI channel. Okay, here's the documentation for sending MIDI program change messages. So the first argument is the MIDI channel. Second argument is the program change message, an integer from 0 to 127. So in the grid element, that is the argument is called I, and that translate then into these different program change messages. Let's have a look how that looks like in the log. Let's click on here, click on that. See, it's program change set. The MIDI channel is 1, and I clicked on here the first program change. Here's the second one. You can see how that works. Let's move on into these buttons here. When I click on that one here, you see that the program change, there's another message, it's called program change a plus, and it applies the delta, so the difference to and now the currently or the last sent program change messages. You don't see that here in OSC log, but the script remembers the last message that it sent here. That was 5, and when the script receives a message that says program change plus with an argument on 1, it takes the last remembered program change message and adds 1. And you guess what this is doing? This is the same button, but here the argument I've changed to 10. So that allows me to, with one OSC message, so program change plus, to change whatever delta you would like. And you guessed it probably, this is the same. When I click on minus, the message is a bit different. It's a minus here, and clicking on this minus 10, the argument is then just 10. Have a look how this button looks like with these OC message here. This is program change minus, and the argument is 1, and here I have just given as an argument 10, and the same is happening here. This is plus 10 and plus 1. All right, that was it for the program change message, and now comes something that I like a lot, and that is adding tracks and effects, or adding favorites. Let's go into this area. This is to add the favorites. Basically, it's all, again, buttons with labels on it. And let's have a look at the OSC message. Here we can see that it's called add elements instrument VST3, and then comes a long number in here. So the documentation shows that I have quite a number of few different add elements messages. We can differentiate between instruments and effects, and the difference is simply the following. When I send an add elements message and it's an instrument message, I create a new track in Bitwig and then add an element onto that track. While when I send an add elements fx comment, I don't create a new track, but I simply add the VST2, VST3 clap or Bitwig device, which is usually then an FX device, onto this existing track. And I always do that at the latest point of the device chain. So again, these are very, very similar. Again, for instrument, I first create the new track. Here, I don't do that. We have the possibility, and that comes with the possibility of the API, to add VST2, VST3, clap, and Bitwig devices. And it's important to differentiate them because the argument that I provide will look a bit different. The interesting thing is, how do I get access to the code that I need to supply? Because if you look in here, we have here, this is a VST3 element. This has as an argument this long ID. A Bitwig sampler has a different, as you see, that looks differently, has this dashes in between, and yes, this is a VS2 element. That's a shorter ID. Now let's have a look where we get these IDs from. The way how to get access to these device IDs is described on the documentation here. It's on the README-OSC extension file down here. It tells us that we need to create a config.json file, and in that file we need to write this following line here: can copy device and param IDs true. And let's have a look where we can find this file or where we need to create this. For that, I open a terminal window on Mac. It's described here for Windows. I'm using a Mac only, so show this on the Mac, and you probably will find out how to do this on the other OSs as well. So I'm currently in my home library, home folder, and here in that folder I need to move into library, application support, Bitwig, Bitwig Studio. Let's do that. Say the library, then application support, Bitwig, Bitwig Studio. Let's have a look. I have already created this config.json file. Let's see what's in there. Cut config.json. Here we can go, can copy device and param IDs. It's true. And once you have that, and believe you need to restart Bitwig, you can have access to the following thing. Let's say we want to create a button in TouchOSC that creates a new track with a polygrid in it. I've just added a track with polygrid in it, and now I do a right click here. And once you have this config.json file there with this first line that I just showed you, you get another element down here. It's called copy device ID to clipboard. I do this here right now. And going back into TouchOSC, that's here. Let's say we wanted to add a comment for polygrid. Let's say we change the polymer here to polygrid. I would go down here and you see the OSC messages: add elements, instrument, Bitwig. That's already right. This is the idea of the polymer. Let's remove this, or we can leave the argument here. It's a constant and it's a string constant, and I'm adding here the new ID, which I just copied from Bitwig for the polygrid. And if we would now click on this, it would create a new track with polygrid on it. How nice is that? Obviously, you probably want to change the label then here as well. So we've seen we can create VST2, VST3 elements. We've seen how that goes for effects. Let's have a look at some of the effects as well. Here is one of the newer devices, a Filter Plus device. This is how the message looked like at Elements FX. It's a Bitwig device, and this is the ID of the Bitwig device. And you see that's actually not too hard. You just go through Bitwig and look at your favorite devices. Here's an EQ device. Get the device ID to the clipboard and then create a button, as we've just seen that here is a contact, and that brings me to a very interesting question. If I have here a Hydra guitar sample library, which I like a lot, and that is part of Contact. Now I know how to add contacts just by the way that we just saw, right? Copy device to clipboard, and I'm sure I have somewhere a contact device in one of my favorites. Here's a contact device, so I simply added that in the way we just discussed. It's VST instrument. If I click on that button, I create a new instance of contact. But now what I would need to have to do is go into contact, then search for the library and open the library, and maybe even configure some of the configurations that you need to do in the library. And how great would it be if you could just simply create in Bitwig a preset, a patch, and then load that. And this is what I'm going to show you right now. Okay, let me show you how to load the presets on a new track just by the click of a button on my iPad. I've prepared an empty Bitwig session, and here you can see touch surface, and let's go into these presets here. And when I click on JC Audience Choir, you see it creates a new track, and on that track it creates a contact, and in that contact I have already selected the JC Audience Choir. How nice is that? I click on the albium strings, which is still in contact. The BBC Violins, they have their own device in their surfaces. I can edit a shreddage arctop, which I have put into an instrument layer, and here's a contact, and in the contact there's the lovely arctop a guitar sample library. Or how about loading a session percussionist? Session percussionist also comes within contact, and you can see contact opens with the session percussionist, and I like that a lot because you can easily set up your presets and then load your favorite presets just with the click of a button. Now let me show you how that works. First of all, you probably have to create your presets, right? So that you here create a contract, open a contact library, add the session percussionist into it, and then you go down here on the right side and set preset in Bibliothek speichern, so save preset in the library. And when I open the Finder, I can go down into Bitwig, and you can see that is the Bitwig installation in the library. There's a folder called presets, and in presets you can see presets for the individual devices. And contact here, for example, I have some presets for the session percussionist, and that was the one that we just saw. Let's take that as an example. And in TouchOSC, where's the session percussionist? Down here. Let's take a look in the OSC message. It's called add elements, instrument, preset by name. That's a new comment that we haven't covered so far. And there comes two arguments, and these arguments, when they're added together, these are two strings, they basically create the full length from the root to the patch or the preset file that we just looked up in the Finder here. Again, you first have to add the path to the Bitwig installation, and then add the presets folder, the contact 7, and this is session percussionist. This is the file name. Contact 7, session percussionist, Bitwig presets. So why do I have two arguments for that? It's very simple. This is the one that I need to change, and the first part for me on my installation always stays the same. The problem I still have here is that I need to supply absolute path names, and this is probably very different from all different machines where your installation of Bitwig is. Mine is here in users, that's my name, and Dropbox, and there is the library presets, we just saw that, and then comes, this is the variable part that I'm changing for all these different, here for example for the JC Audience Choir. By the way, thank you very much for providing that, Jacob Collier. What a great device. I just needed to change Contact 7 and JC Audience Choir, and this is the preset that I've created for that. Before I found out how to create or load presets by simply supplying the preset name, by the way, people helped me on the in the forums to actually find that out, how that works. There was another way how to do this, and I've left it in the script. Maybe that's useful for some folks. And it works the way that I open up the browser for a specific device. And then I can see the presets for the specific device, as the browser in Bitwig is context sensitive. And then I click down a certain number of times until I find the preset number, or I supply the number of times you click down, and then you simply open that. Let me show you how that works. For example, the sub 37 here, if I click on that button here, you can see in Bitwig that quickly the browser went up, and it scrolled down a few times and opened the sub 30 device, and see that is configured. It's a hardware instrument that I configured for my sub 37, or click on the Nord stage. You see that was a bit quicker. Let me show you how that works in TouchOSC as well. So we're switching to TouchOSC. Here is the sub 37. The OSC comment is called add elements, instrument, and this time it's called preset by number. And what I do is here I provide the as an argument the ID of a device. Here it's a Bitwig device, and then as a second argument I provide the number of times you should click down or scroll down in the browser window. All right, folks, that's it for today. As usual, give me a like. That was informative for you. You might think about subscribing to my channel, and I would really like to hear from you. How do you use the Bitwig Performance Twister? What are the use cases? Is there anything that you're really missing to it? Let me know in the comments below. So for now, thank you very much for listening through. Bye bye for now. Ciao, ciao.